Hello, and welcome to yet another Tribe 9 related YouTube video. Today, we're going to talk about breaking. Who is the best breaker? I have a good idea of who it is, of course. We all have a good idea of who the best breaker is. But let's talk about who the best breaker is in order of the best from the worst, or the worst from the best. Alright, let's get right into it. So, first of all, let's look at who we want to analyze first. So we're going to start with Yo. So we will not be using Patimons or potentials, so let's just get right into the raw stats, raw break value. So with Yo, his primary attack does 60 plus 40, so 100 break damage. That's not that great. His secondary has a break value of 200, and his counter has a break value of 500. We will not be using counterattacks in this challenge, so really the only thing that matters is using his secondary attack as much as possible. That break, and also using his strategy skill, which has a 600 break value. So let's get right in and test Yo, see how good his break is, see how fast we can break. Our strategy will be to spam his strategy skill as much as possible. Alright, so moving along, we have Q here. With Q, what we want to do is break as much as possible by using his strategy skill as well. So like Yo, his break comes from his strategy skill. As you can see here, it has a break value of 300, and it does 350% times 2 damage, but that doesn't really matter. All we're focusing on is break. His other skills, like his primary and secondary, have respectfully 90, 30, 30. So primary attack has 150 break, and his secondary has a break value of 260. His secondary is very slow, it's not very useful. So spamming his strategy is the way to go. Now, going to the combat test. Now that that's done, let's talk about Gotanda. Gotanda here, his break damage comes from mostly his strategy skill as well. So, it's a break value of 200. So we want to use his secondary to charge up his meter. Then the strategy, which uses 20 stacks of that charge. His primary only has an 8 break value, and his secondary has a 20 break value, so we want to spam his secondary to his strategy as much as possible. Let's move along to the combat test. Alright, as for Saigo. So Saigo wants to use his secondary skill build up meter here. So as you can see, his primary does a whopping 400 break, which is pretty good total. But his secondary has a break value of 250 and 150. So his spin attack does 150 break, and the finisher, which is an upward gulf swing, has a break value of 250, which totals 400 as well, but is a lot faster than the full combo of the basics. So his secondary attack is what you want to spam, and that'll be the strategy for breaking the fastest possible. Now moving along to Semba. Semba has a interesting strategy here. The best way to break with her is to use her secondary attack over and over again, but her secondary has a very slow wind up. As you can see here, her secondary attack has a break value of 200. Pretty mediocre in my opinion based on the charge. I think her strategy skill also has a decent break value of 200. Its enhanced state, it's also a break value of 200. So you use her secondary and her strategy as well to break enemy. It's very slow. Let's get into it. Now let's take a look at Koinata. Koinata Koishi has a really interesting break value on his secondary. His secondary attack has a break value of 400, which is pretty high considering he's a healer and not a breaker. It's easy to spam, it's nice. Let's get right into it to see the example before we move on to the next character. Now, as for Miu, she has a break value of 0 on her turret, but she had her secondary has a break value of 270, which is pretty good. Let's move on to the combat test. Iroha's main strategy is to use her primary, secondary, and strategy in order to break efficiently, because in order to use her strategy, she needs to use her primary and secondary attack. So her primary attacks have a total break value of 98, and her secondary has a break value of 250, so it's not too bad. Her strategy, however, has a much better break value of 400. She is a pseudo breaker, actually a little bit fast at breaking. Let's get right into it. Now, Kazuki Aoyama is one of the best breakers in the game, hands down, because of his secondary. His secondary attack has a whopping break value of 1000 total value if you go with the two attacks that can be chained together. His primary attack is a 4-stage attack, and the 4th stage has a break value of 150, totaling these attacks to about 230 break value. Let's get right into an example using Kazuki Aoyama to break. So as for Yukigaya, her secondary has the highest break value. As we can see here, it has a break value of 500, but it is fairly slow compared to her strategy, which has a break value of 300. So we want to do a mix of her secondary and also her strategy skill in order to break enemies. Let's get right into it. As for Mita here, Mita has a break value of 100 on his strategy skill, and his secondary skill has a break value of 200. So it's best to just spam his secondary attack over and over in order to break. Let's get right into an example using Mita. Senju here is pretty goated. His break values are mostly concentrated on his secondary, which has a break value of 600. His primary attacks have a total break value of a measly 100, so it's not that worth doing if we're trying to purely break. Let's just spam secondary attacks and see how it goes. His strategy also has a pretty high break value of 30, but it's a little bit slow, so we will not be using that attack at all. Get into an example. Now last but not least, we have Minami Oi. Minami Oi's break values are a little bit abysmal. The only thing that can be done to break with her is use basic attacks, which have a total break value of 220. So 220 break value for 3 basic attacks, and they're mostly focused on the 3rd stage basic attack. So let's see an example of breaking with Minami Oi. The next one we'll talk about is Eiji here. Eiji is also an interesting breaker. Most of his break values are focused on his secondary. He also has decent big break values on his autos, which total a whopping 130 point. But his secondary attack has 200 break. Pretty spammable. A little bit awkward because of the positioning. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about in the next example. Alright, so in conclusion, we've made a tier list for these breakers, and we'll go take a look at exactly where everyone ranks based on their capability of breaking the Brave Diver as quickly as possible. Let's get right into it. Now that we have the tier list open, let's talk about which character has the best break and which character has the worst break in order. With a whopping 16-second clear, Yo has the best break in the game, tied with Senju at 16 seconds in S tier. Kazuki has a break time of 17 seconds, the example that we made, so he's very close, not too far behind. Followed by Koishi in A tier with a break time of 27 seconds. Then Enoki with a break time of 28 seconds. Then Roku, Saigo with a break time of 29 seconds, followed by Iroha with a break time of 30 seconds. Then in the B tier, we have Q with a break time of 31 seconds, Eiji 34 seconds, and Miu 35 seconds. The C tier, we have Gotanda with a break time of 45 seconds, followed by Mita, the break time of 45 seconds. The D tier, we have Minami Oi and Tsuruko, both having very low break times. Oi has a break time of 52 seconds, whilst Tsuruko here has a break time of 63 seconds. In the question mark tier, we have Geo, because I am Geoless and I wasn't able to test them. So again, thanks a lot for dropping by, guys. I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night. I am SaidFlame. I hope you do enjoy these kinds of videos. I'll see you on the flip side. Peace!